Hello everybody, my name's Barbara Bassot and I'm from Canterbury Christchurch University. Welcome to our webinar all about helping your students to make the right university choices. I'm a qualified careers advisor and I'm also a lecturer at the university. I wear a number of hats in the sense that I work with students on undergraduate programmes. So I am an admissions tutor and a careers advisor as well. And I teach students. So the webinar today, we're going to be looking at a range of issues in relation to university choice. And it will be an opportunity to have insights from, if you like, the university side of the fence, as well as from the client's perspective. So it's really good that you've been able to join us today. I hope you've had a good day at work, doing whatever you've been doing. And I'll be speaking for about 15 to 20 minutes altogether. There will be the opportunity to ask some questions. If you type your questions into the questions box and hit send, then we'll see it. I'll see it on my screen, and I'll try and answer your questions either as I go along or at the end of the webinar. If there are any questions that are sort of too big or too broad, we will email you in the next few days. We'll also be sending the PowerPoint and the recording to you at some point early next week. Just also want to say that if you're trying to send a question and you can't see the questions box, there's a little arrow on the top right, and if you just click on that, it should open the box for sending the questions, sending your questions. Okay, so you can see my PowerPoint presentation in front of you. You can see that the title I've given is Choosing a University is Just Like Choosing a Holiday, or is it? Slightly tongue-in-cheek, of course. Certainly all of us will be hoping that that students will be making their choices, thinking of different perspectives, thinking of different factors, and university tutors will certainly be hoping that their prospective students won't be treating their time at university as if it is a holiday, which of course it isn't. Choosing university is a difficult thing. It's for many students, it's one of the big decisions. It's the biggest decision probably that they have made so far in their lives. And so it's something that, you know, they will need support with. And thankfully, they have people like you who will support them in the process. So if we move on, I'm just trying to get my next slide here. This is, as I've said here on my next slide, which is just about to come. Here we go. This is not a lesson in decision making. I'm not taking you into a PSHE classroom or a careers education program because you know more about that than I do, I'm absolutely sure. So this is not a lesson in decision making, a classic topic for PSHE or for careers. But when we think about something like how we choose a holiday, there are some similarities, of course, in relation to choosing a holiday and choosing which university we might want to go to, or our student might want to go to. So the similarities are things such as, well, where do I go? How far do I want to travel? Key question, of course, is what will it cost me? And what kind of thing will I enjoy? But in relation to the differences, of course, there are many. If we choose a holiday for 2 to 3 weeks, let's say, and it turns out to be, well, it's not the greatest experience we've ever had, it might have cost us a fair bit of money, but it won't be the end of the world. But of course, choosing a degree course is a much bigger thing in terms of the length of time, the impact that that decision has, how it will affect what I do in the future. And I think many students have this huge question in their minds: what happens if I change my mind? What happens if I get there and it turns out that, you know, it's not what I thought, it's not the decision perhaps that I should have made. And so the idea of how students are feeling about the whole process is hugely important. Students who you are working with will be undoubtedly experiencing a range of different emotions, and those emotions will ebb and flow as they go through the university choice process. There may be one day when they feel really excited, another day when they feel pretty scared, another day when they feel quite anxious, and other times when they feel much more relaxed. And so these emotions and feelings will ebb and flow at different points. All of this, of course, they are having to go through while they are meant to be studying. And of course, schools and colleges have this as very high priority, and so do many students. And so it's really difficult when they're trying to make these very key decisions with such a lot going on in their lives. This next slide, which said it's time to be strategic, it is, of course, very easy to be confused. And when you look at the PowerPoint slide here, you can see the person here has a whole range of different options, different thoughts, different feelings, different things that they are thinking about. But at a time like this, it's important for all students to be strategic and to make good choices. Now, what do we mean by strategic thinking in relation to university choice? Well, it's about students putting themselves into the best possible position to get to be where they want to be. And it's not necessarily an easy thing. It's about making those strategic decisions in relation to those 5 choices, only 5 choices that they get on their UCAS forms. And so we all know that actually if I choose universities that are all likely to ask me for the same grades in my A-levels or my points or my IB, then I could leave myself without any choice if my results don't turn out and don't go the way that I hope that they will. So it's about making sure that I do have some choice and that I do some strategic thinking along the way. So for students, it's often about like going on a journey where they are finding their way. And it is important that students find their own way. Something that I always emphasize to people a lot when I'm seeing clients in a career guidance setting. Why is it important that they find their own way? Well, basically because they're the ones that are going to have to do it. In other words, if it's their decision, they will own it, and they will then be able to take things forward themselves. I mean, it's great that they have adults around them to support them, but of course going to university will be one of the first the first steps towards what we will hope for as what I might call independent adult life. So they have, in that sense, making their own choices. It's a very good place to start. This was published, what's on the screen now was published by the Times Higher last year. And these are the top reasons, the most important reasons for wanting to go to university. And you can see the way that they pan out. So, you know, because I'm passionate about the subject that I study, scores very high, to continue my learning and development, and because I want to pursue a particular career, down to the bottom, where we've got things like to have a fresh start, to meet new people, to experience university life and have a good time. And right at the bottom, because everyone I know goes or to university or went to university. Looking at those results there, I am not in any way saying this to run any students down, but sometimes I do think, you know, surveys like this, we can be tempted into saying what we think we should be saying, or what other people think we should be saying. I think many of these reasons are very common, and I'm sure that lots of your own students feel under pressure to go to university for all sorts of different reasons. This is another reason why it's very important that students make their own decisions. From the university perspective, obviously they all hope that it's the reason at the top, you know, because we want students who are passionate about their subjects, people who want to continue learning and develop their learning and development, etc., to be intellectually challenged and stimulated. They all sound fantastic reasons for the university lecturer that's in me, or that when I am in my role as a university lecturer. Something, of course, that universities are also very concerned about is what we call attrition rates, student dropout rates. And these, generally speaking, are things that universities are very concerned about. They vary from one university to another, but the last time I looked, the general statistic overall was that of the students who start university, 25% will either drop out or change their courses. And that to me is a high figure. So it's 1 in 4 overall. It can be relatively easy, and I'm being very cautious here in what I'm saying, because this won't always be the case. But it can be relatively easy to change courses in the very early time of a degree course. And by that, I mean the first 2 to 3 weeks. Later, any later than that, it gets very difficult. It can involve a whole extra year of study, and which means another year of fees. So, not that I would ever say this to students, you know, who I would be working with. It might, you know, it's quite scary, really. But I think as careers professionals, it's really good for us to know that. So that, because it really highlights the importance of supporting people and helping people to be clear, or as clear as they possibly can be, about what they want to do in the future. Now here on the next slide, we've got some very common factors that all of your students will be considering. The location of the university, whether to be on a campus or a city centre university. The courses on offer, of course, is a big one. And this I always feel is the most difficult part. Again, the last statistics I looked at, I think there are currently approximately 37,000 different degree courses in universities and HEIs in the UK. So no wonder it's a difficult decision. We've also got issues of finance, accommodation, and whether or not to take a gap year. Now, many of these things are things that students will be considering. I've recently written something called the University Choice Journal, which Trotman have published. And it does take students through these steps. A report that came out this week, written by Siobhan Neary and her colleagues at the University of Derby, is all about personal guidance, that one-to-one careers advice that we know about. And that report really emphasises the need for students to be prepared for preparation for that one-to-one careers interview and for the aftercare afterwards, because otherwise their research has found that just that on its own, that 30 minutes or 45 minutes or however long students get is really not enough. And something like the University Choice Journal could really help your students to go through some of that thinking, first of all, in preparation for that one-to-one guidance. I just now want to highlight 2 or 3 things to you. We all know about University Open Days. Many students who go to university say that it's the single most important thing that helps them to make their mind up about where they want to go. It's such a great opportunity. What I've found in being involved in open days at my own university is that even the most confident student can lose all their confidence on an open day. I will give a presentation at an open day, and at the end I'll ask for questions, and there aren't any. And it's quite staggering. And so one thing you can really help them with is ask your students to prepare questions in advance of an open day and to write them down, and not to forget to take them with them, because it's really surprising that they lose such a great opportunity. So what students need, we know they need all of these things. They need support, they need advice, assistance and guidance. And thankfully, students have people such as yourself to go to when they need it, which is absolutely great. For some students, they will see things as, they'll feel quite calm. Sometimes they'll feel quite calm 1 minute or one day, and then something happens and panic starts to set in. But with people like you to support them, hopefully there will be more calm than panic. So that's, we've had, I think, about 20 minutes, in fact. So that's what I wanted to say. So if you do have any questions, do please feel free to ask them. We're just going to wait a couple of minutes just to see if there are any questions, but thank you very much for joining us and for listening. So we're just going to wait a couple of minutes. Okay, as there aren't any questions, thank you very much for joining us. Um, and I hope it's been useful. We will send out the recording in the next few days, sometime early next week. So thanks again and have a good day.